New Hampshire Democrats are largely occupied right now with the first-in-the-nation primary. But on the Republican side of the fence, a very compelling U.S. Senate race is taking shape. One of the candidates in that contest to take on two-term Senator Jeanne Shaheen next fall is retired Brigadier General Don Bolduc, who is our guest today. General, thanks for being here.
Adam, thank you very much. It's an honor to be here.
And we want to thank your service dog, Victor, for being alongside. I believe that's our first ever canine guest, so feel free, Victor, to chime in if you need to. We appreciate you both being here. So last week was the 18th anniversary of 9/11, and you were one of the first Americans on the ground in Afghanistan taking that fight to the Taliban for having provided safe harbor to Osama bin Laden and the terrorists who caused the 9/11 attacks. The U.S. is still there today. Why hasn't America been able to succeed there, and do those troops need to remain?
Well, I think it's not fair to categorize it as not succeeding. Our service members have performed admirably, honorably, and have been told, have done everything that they've been asked to do by our policymakers and our senior military leaders. Everything. And they've done it exceptionally. And they've sacrificed both them and their families over the last 18 years. So I think we need to focus on that. We are ready for a transition. Our service members have brought us to that point where it's time to transition responsibilities for security, governance, and development to the Afghan government and its people.
Last week, President Trump revealed that he had invited the Taliban to peace talks at Camp David. That ruffled some feathers. Certainly, Camp David's usually reserved for allies and other world leaders, not necessarily medieval terrorists that you would bring to U.S. soil. So let's put it this way. If you were a U.S. senator and President Trump called you up and said, Senator Bolduc, I'd like you to come and sit down with the Taliban. We're going to have dinner. We're going to talk things out. Would you accept?
Of course I would accept. My president has asked me to do something, and he's asked me to do something in furtherance of national objectives and goals and policies to bring peace to an area that has been stricken with violence for decades, right? Long time. And so, yes, I would support my president in every way that I possibly could for his success and the success of our nation.
And certainly don't want to minimize the contribution of American servicemen and women in Afghanistan, but the country has not been transformed. It's still largely the same, and the Taliban looks like it'll take over as soon as we leave. So what does success look like there, in your opinion?
Success looks like a comprehensive plan where the Afghan government is involved, the Taliban's involved, our international partners are involved. Comprehensive and transparent. Everybody should know what is going on there. And we should accept the results of whatever transpires after we have transitioned it. We need to look more at regional stability in this area. India, Pakistan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, China, Russia, all of these are hugely important regional stability issues, and the United States needs to look at that. That is hugely important because with regional stability comes overall country stability. They need to work together.
We're just talking about President Trump. Where do you stand with President Trump? If you're in the U.S. Senate, are you going to be able to stand up against him when you think he's wrong? Because right now, a lot of Republicans are afraid to speak out.
Listen, here's the deal. The question is, how do we in the Senate do everything we possibly can to make sure our president is successful so that our nation can be successful? And yes, I have a proven track record of coming forward and being very honest with things that I believe in, things that I think are right, and things that I think are wrong. So regardless of the situation, first and foremost, I am going to do the right thing for the people of New Hampshire. It will be New Hampshire first in my mind.
So let's take an example. President Trump infamously denigrated Senator John McCain's POW status. The White House briefly raised the flag that was at half-staff during the mourning period for the senator. I believe the president also said that avoiding venereal disease was his personal Vietnam. So if he makes a comment like that and you're in the Senate, you're going to stand up and say something.
I'm going to stand up, and I am going to stand up for what is right, and I'm going to stand up for the service of John McCain. I'm going to stand up for the service of all of our veterans, and those things are hugely important. I am going to be a voice for them in the Senate, and I will allow nobody to denigrate their service at any time, and that's going to be my position.
I'm still waiting to see if Corey Lewandowski jumps into this race. We've talked before about this, and you said what he does doesn't really matter to me. But if he does get in, it could bring a lot of that Trump money along with him. So how do you win if Corey Lewandowski does get into this race?
Right now, I'm focused on who's in the race, not focused on who's not in the race. If that comes, I'm on it. If it doesn't, fine. But I am focused on those that are in the race, and that's who I'm working on. In particular, Jeanne Shaheen. That's who I'm going to beat.
How would you be different in Washington, though, than Corey Lewandowski? He's there.
He's in Washington, D.C. as a political advisor. I'm going to be there as a representative of the people of New Hampshire. There's a huge difference between being a political advisor, being a lobbyist, doing your job there, right, and being a representative of the people. 1.3 million. That's a privilege and an honor that I can't even believe I'm being asked to do. That's just an unbelievable honor to me. From my humble beginnings in Laconia, New Hampshire, as the son of a farmer working on a farm, going in the military as a private. You know, my biggest ambition was to be a law enforcement officer in the state of New Hampshire, and I was a police officer, one of the youngest in the state in the early 80s. I love serving my state. I love the idea of serving my country, and that's what I'm going to do. There's a huge difference between getting the privilege from the Granite Staters to serve them in the Senate and other jobs in Washington, D.C.
You mentioned Senator Shaheen. Can you point to a particular vote that she made in Washington where you thought, gosh, she really put the interests of her party or someone else ahead of the people of New Hampshire?
I think there's a lot of things that Jeanne Shaheen has done in Washington, D.C. that has put the party first and at the exclusion of New Hampshire. One of the biggest things that she's talking about right now that I'm hugely concerned with, and that is the repeal of the Electoral College Amendment. That is dangerous for New Hampshire. It's dangerous for our country. And her and Senator Hassan have been on TV. They've been on the record. They support this. This is bad for New Hampshire. This cannot happen. It's bad for our country. And that is one of the #1 things that I see as a clear and present danger.
In your activism on mental health, you've been very vocal on this since even before you launched this campaign. Explain, when you talk about post-traumatic stress, an issue you're concerned about, and I believe you struggled with as well, you refer to it as PTS. You leave off the D. I think I know what you're getting at there, but explain why you take the D out of PTSD.
So post-traumatic stress, in my experience in the military with helping service members, the service members came to me and said, "Sir, we got to lose the D. We don't have a disorder. This is not a disorder. It's a mental injury that we got as a result of serving our country in combat. And if we stigmatize it with a disorder, people are never going to give us the help that we need. We're always going to be that person over there with PTS, right?" And I agree with them 100%, because the science shows us it's a reordering of the brain to keep you alive in combat more than one day. And when you come back, it doesn't line up perfectly, right? You have to have help making the transition back, and we owe that to our service members and our veterans, and we're not giving it to them. And that is hugely important. So getting rid of that D is significant in the minds of our veterans. And if it's significant in the mind of our veterans and our service members, we should be paying attention to it.
So how do you incorporate that into reforming the VA?
Well, that's easy, right? The VA has to drop the D. The VA has to develop less bureaucracy when it comes to helping our service members and that become veterans, right? There's a huge leadership problem. I'm going to say this right now, a huge leadership problem between the director in this state, who is Al Montoya, who is doing his level best to help our veterans and being very successful inside an environment that's got a broken bureaucracy and leaders that are centralizing all the programs up there. We have our president who is doing great things, but we have a bureaucracy that gets in the way. We need to bust that down. Just like every other problem that we're having here in New Hampshire. Doesn't matter if it's violence in our communities, if it's affordable education, if it's the opioid crisis, if it's mental health. Everything is so centralized up in D.C. We've become so Washington-centric that with all these strings attached, we have not been able to empower our communities. And that's one of the big things that I want to do. So it's not only going to help the VA, it's going to help a number of the departments up there, my approach to decentralize these things and get our communities to be more effective at dealing with it by less control in Washington, D.C., a smaller bureaucracy, and more emphasis on our communities, solving problems.
Back to foreign policy as we wrap up here. It's often said that people who fought in war are a little bit more reluctant to send troops into combat. Do you think you would be a voice in Washington who would be eager or willing to send troops into conflict, or be a bit more circumspect and say, gosh, we should think twice before we commit American troops overseas?
So I'm in the camp of your latter statement, right? Circumspect, yes. Critical, yes. We're going to have a policy to do this, right? We're going to have a clear mission with a clear end state, and we're going to work towards it. And that's the problem right now. 18 years of war. And the policy that we have has not been effective in solving the problem in Afghanistan. Although our service members have been affected, have been effective, as I have said, the policy and strategies have not been. And that's a huge, huge mistake. Jeanne Shaheen has sat on the Senate Armed Services Committee for 12 years. What has she done for the policy in Afghanistan, Syria, Iraq, Africa, Europe, first world policies, third world policies? How has this all been brought together? I'll tell you what, it's not. I served under it. I know it has not. I suffered there. I realized. I made my points clear that the policy and strategy has a huge disconnect with our approach, and we're not going to achieve the goals and objectives that we need to achieve, and that must change. She's part of the problem. I'm part of the solution.
General Bolduc, we thank you for your time on Close Up, and thank you to
very
Victor
much.
as well.